Siri mutabani wa mugayavu, Siri muzzukulu wa mubanda, Siri nze Siri jjajjange Kintu, taata Buntu, Kintu bwe buntu bulamu.
Hello world. I welcome you to Idea Cafe Africa. My name is Ngonzi the Solution, and we are today at the set of Ekyooto Africa, also called Ekyooto Solution. We are still building this place, and today I'm very excited that I'm hosting two very close friends of mine, Mr. Ojok Okello, all the way from Okere City here in Uganda, then my friend Pamela Abonyo, who has just come down from climbing and summiting Mountain Kilimanjaro. So I am here in the presence of visionaries, pioneers, people who are looking at life in a way that goes beyond. So in 1 minute each, I'm going to ask them to tell us about themselves, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Thank you very much. So my name is Ojok Okello, and I'm the founder and CEO of Okere City. Okere City is an ambitious rural development plan that tries to reimagine what an African village could look like in 100 years. The idea of Okere City basically came because I noticed that life in my village, or in the many villages that I've been to across the continent, or more particularly in Uganda, have been deteriorating. When I used to visit my grandmother in the village 20, 30 years ago, it was enthralling. There were lush farms, people were happy, but the same is not true now. So I imagine that life should be about progress. Life should be about development. So how come things are not better now than they used to be? Hence this whole radical idea of trying to create a sustainable city in my village, which I'm sure we're going to discuss a little more.
I'm excited about that. I have a question to follow up, but let's hear from Pam. Pam, please, the world is waiting to hear your story.
Yeah, my name is Pamela Abonyo. I consider myself as a servant. I've served in various capacities, and I know I'm not as impressive as such in a city, but my goal is to impact the future generation. I've been doing that today I thought about it, maybe 12 years, teaching between the ages of 3 to 12. I've seen them grow, I've seen them finish high school. It's been a journey. I have many facets, but that is where my passion is.
I want to encourage you, because there is a saying that the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that raises the nation. Have you heard of that?
Yes, indeed.
So please continue. But now, Mr. Cityman, what's going to make you different from Akon? Because Akon came here and promised us a city, yeah, and he was ridiculed. And I found it a bit sad that his dreams did not find a place of receptivity among the Africans who was trying to liberate. But now here you are, you have decided to do something as radical as starting a city in the village, and you're thinking 100 years from now. So I want you to tell us what is the unique thing that is going to drive this success, so that I can also pick from that and take it to my own village and turn it into a city.
Exactly. And so the idea of Okere City is actually to create a model that could be replicated around the continent. And I think that people should not really ridicule Akon because everything starts with an idea, right? Perhaps the challenge with Econ is that his fame and his publicity make the idea to blow out of proportion before execution. And the opposite is true for me. Before I started talking about this whole idea of the city, I actually went back to the village and started putting bricks to mortar, started doing stuff before I could even mention the word city, right? So when I started talking about it, there was actually something in place. When I started talking about the Okere City idea, we already had 200 children going to our school. We already had over 30 people every day.
So you have a school?
Yes.
You've built a school?
Yeah, we've built a school. We already had 30 people every day visiting our health facility. We already had a product in the marketplace. So it kind of authenticates this idea, but it's very possible.
So if I get you, the models upon which you built your city before you even began calling it a city was infrastructure.
Yes, infrastructure is key.
Education, medical,
Yeah.
and commerce. Tell us about the commerce.
So the commerce is that livelihood and well-being and the local economy is basically the engine upon which a rural life circulates. Without it, you are not going to talk about even education to a hungry child. You need money to get porridge, or to make sure that a child is satisfied and so that they could go to school. So in everything, you really need to tackle the economy. So our model is based on self-resilience, so building a self-resilient rural community. And we do this by having a series of both farm and off-farm activities. So in addition to supporting agricultural enterprise development, we also bring women in the village to make handcrafts, to make all these things that they could sell. For instance, if you visited Okere today, you would definitely come back with something in your hands. We also have share butter. The story of the share butter is that we have a natural resource.
This is it.
Yeah,
share
so
butter.
this is a share butter. It's one of the products that we have in the marketplace. So we have share trees, right? But because people in the village didn't value share trees beyond the butter that it offered to them for eating, they were destroying it. After all, the share butter was already too much in the village, the one they could eat. They didn't know what else they could use this butter for, right? They didn't know that, hey, the shea butter could actually is excellent for my hair, for my skin. They didn't know that the shea butter is worth $1.2 billion in the global marketplace. They didn't know this. So it took sensitization. It took teaching them and training them that, hey, we could have this. And now that they know that they have this, nobody could even touch the shea tree because they know the value built or embedded within this resource. So first things first, you need food in people's stomach before you can tell them.
You can't teach a hungry man.
Yeah, you really can't. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
One, I started walking back home. I joined the dance class.
Walking back home.
Yes.
How far is home from
About
work?
8 kilometers.
Okay.
Because you can't dive into big things. You have to start slowly.
Say that again. You can't?
Dive into big things. Because the purpose is creating a future for yourself. It has to be small steps.
I like to say, take a step daily in the direction of your greatest self.
That's true.
So when you wanted to climb the mountain, you started by walking home.
Yes.
Continue.
So then my second mountain was, the first one I climbed is called Mount Rio. Many of you will not know it.
Mount Rio.
It's in Buko. It borders Kenya and Uganda.
It's not Mountain Elgon?
No, it's a very remote place. The transport we took could not even get there. We had to sit on top of trucks for hours to get there. My second mountain was in Murongolo. That is in the Karamoja region, around Koboko. That one was a little higher, 2,700. Now for that one, it was steep all the way, but I was better prepared. And the thing that I learned climbing mountains is you cannot move other people's paces. We all have different journeys. You know, school teaches us that you go from P1 to P2, it's Kayola. But in reality, life is really like climbing a mountain. You can start together and you finish at different times. My second mountain was Mount Muhabura. The joke is I left my knees there. Muhabura is the toughest mountain to climb in Uganda.
What makes it tough?
What makes it tough? It's a one-day climb. It's 4,100 meters above sea level, and it's a steep climb. There's no breathing in between that you're going to wait. Unlike some mountains that I've climbed, there's space to breathe. This is steep all the way. My friends convinced me to climb 2 mountains in a weekend. So the next day I climbed Sabine.
Sabine?
Yeah, which is right next to Muhabura, which is about 3,800 meters. But I think I only got to 3,400 because my knees had remained at the Sabino peak. So what I did is I came back, I said, now what, again, you know, as you're in your journey, even when you've reached one peak, sometimes you come down and you have to come back and reassess yourself. What are you doing? What are you doing wrong? What are you doing correct? Then from then on, I had to see an orthopedic for my knees. Like how you say, you go back and you have a mentor who you go back to if you're running a business, and you keep going back. So a friend who's a doctor said, hey, why don't you join me at the gym? And I was doing her workouts, but then a lockdown happened. And you know, in life there are so many setbacks. So you ask yourself, what do you do? My friend said, let's walk. And in fact, when I reached just 2 days before I started the hike to Kilimanjaro, I read that the best practice to climb it is just to walk. So I started walking with my friends every morning. We'll do maybe between 12 to 15 kilometers, depending on where we're going. Sometimes it will be 20, depending on where we're going. So it was just a walk. And indeed, when I finally got to Kilimanjaro, it was just walking. The first 2 days were just like gentle walks. If you're used to walking, if you're not, it can be difficult. But you're walking and you're like, hey, I've done this. As you get used to altitude, they're just gentle walks until the last day. That's when the experience you got from the other mountains comes into play.
I like the word you've used. Experience from other mountains. You know, she mentioned the word resilience, and I noticed that you had also used the word resilience. I'm curious. Pam, you went to Muhabura and left your knees there.
Yes.
Normal people would say, why continue? Why am I climbing mountains? But you left your knees there and you went through all this to only go and climb another mountain. And for her, it was her knees. For you, I'm sure you have lost so much. Probably even a girlfriend or two. Because when you tell her, oh, I'm setting up a city in Okere, she's like, me, I'm from Nigeria. If we're not, the farthest I can go from Kampala is Nigeria. Now you're telling her about Okere City. So this is what I'm saying. Why continue pursuing? What is in it? What are you looking for? When you're pursuing a vision that hurts you, that means you don't have many friends. Like you said, not everyone is going to walk with you up that mountain. But what keeps you going? Why must it be done?
Because we must climb the mountain. I mean, metaphorically.
Yes.
I mean, I like that this conversation as somebody who has actually climbed the mountain.
No, that's what you're talking about.
Like in the real sense of the word. But just to metaphorically place it within the context of this discussion, I don't think you could ever get anything easy. I don't think you can succeed without working hard for it. So my primary school's motto was no pain, no gain.
Which school was that?
Morulem Boys in Abim.
Abim, yes, I know.
Yeah, and I used to debate with my head teacher, even as a little kid in school. I mean, why do you have this kind of terrible logo for a school, like no pain, no gain. What about something like work hard and thrive, and all these things? But he told me
Let's not
actually,
get into school mottos.
yeah,
Oh, please,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. So, but what I'm just trying to say is, I think almost inadvertently to gain something, you must lose a lot. And the good news is that the loss is recouped. Like you benefit, you have to temporarily lose. And for me, the loss is that one, to build the city, I have to invest every penny that I've ever saved. Right? Investing, it's very important. Not only the financial
So when you invest,
resources,
you're not
but
losing.
also the
Are you?
time.
When you invest, are you losing?
I mean, sometimes it could seem like a temporary loss because, I mean, for now, maybe I could have bought a Mercedes Benz,
Are you driving
but
alone?
I decide to use the money to construct a dormitory, right?
So that's not a loss, it's a seed.
Yeah, it's a seed that you plant. So for me, I do not really consider the time and the investments that I put in something valuable as a loss. It's an investment. It's a seed that we plant, hoping to benefit from in the future. And that's exactly what we've been doing with the Okere City project, making sure that every resources that we have is put into the most productive of users, making sure that and trying to conceptualize the idea further and concretizing it. So for me, really, I don't want to see the loss. I don't want to see these small wrecks or hurdles as something that should stop us from pursuing the things that we really believe in.
You have to climb the mountain.
Yeah, we have to climb the mountain. So even when it means losing your knee or whatever it is, you must keep the climb.
Interesting. So, Pam, when you're not climbing mountains, what are you thinking about Africa? And I say this so that I would also ask you, when you climbed to the highest summit on Africa, like this conversation is about, summiting the African mountain, what are you doing when you're not climbing the mountain? And how are you thinking about Africa? And then when you got to the top of the mountain, how did you see Africa?
Let me start with what I do when I'm not climbing mountains. So by profession, I'm a marketer, and I think maybe 5 years ago, having worked in a different market, I came back to Uganda and I found that there was the integrity and the morality in the marketing industry was really shocking for me. Where you see people shortchange their companies because they can put with the budgets we handle. If you're a marketing manager, you know how much money can easily enter your pocket. And from a beginning of my career as a 21-year-old, I said those are things I would not do. So we started the Uganda Marketing Society. It does have it's a professional body that sort of governs marketing in Uganda, and I am the board chairperson and also a founder. We have grown tremendously over the last 4-5 years, and our role is to professionalize the industry, where we have honest people working in roles that can transform lives. My reason for joining marketing is my first degree is in development studies. I realized the path to helping people was too long in that field.
The path to helping people.
To getting the path to being of value to people in the society was too long, because you're going to be in politics, you're going to be working in government, and for me, I felt that the bureaucracy didn't work for me. So then I had a gentleman called Otuke who works for Nile Breweries right now. And what he did, he left government and went into the private sector. And he started a project in Soroti that grew so and people can earn a living and have a ready sell, have a buyer for it, market for it, which is the brewers. And I thought to myself, that's such a nice way, and that's why I changed professions into marketing. Because it's much easier, you have CSR budget, you can build more long-term projects. Right now I work with a bank, which is really we call ourselves a social commercial bank, because our ultimate goal is to make lives of people and communities we serve better. And we are very big in the northern region as well. While summiting the mountain, I think there's a misconception that when you summit a mountain, you will hear something.
That's what I thought. I mean, Moses was told, come up and I will tell you. So I assume everyone who goes up the mountain will hear something.
You know, interestingly, that's not what it is. Again, each mountain is different, everyone has a different experience. But for me, reaching Kilimanjaro was just
Peace.
just peace. Because we live in a world that, I remember when I moved back to Uganda, it took me 6 months, it was so noisy. Like I was stressed out all the time. To get used to the traffic, to the people, it was, because where I was a lot of quiet. So to have that peace, that air that is barely there but pure, may I add that your oxygen level can go as low as 60% in the mountain. But you're alive, but if you're here, you would die. That's a COVID patient. But your oxygen level is so low that there's peace, especially for Muhabura, the air was so pure. I can't say the same for Kilimanjaro. But Muhabura, the air was so pure, but Kilimanjaro is really peace.
Awesome. Now, even as we bring this to an end, I want you to paint a picture. Each of you. You, from the place of the mountain, I want you to paint a picture of the Africa you see in the next 100 years. And you, the same. Why is this important? I think that for a very long time, Africa has believed the wrong story. I really do believe that. One of the things I find sad is that here we are, the two of you speak the same language. But for us to communicate, we have to speak another man's language. Yeah? And it is through this that our story has been robbed and misaligned. But again, who is going to change that story if not us? I love the fact that I'm talking to people who are already doing things. Now I want you to speak to that Africa of 100 years, that if you had it in your hands right now to paint a picture that you want your children and your children's children to see, I want you to cast a vision for Africa. Let's call it Africa 50. Let's just say 50 years from today, Africa 50. Paint a picture. Go.
So I'm naturally an optimist. I believe in hope. I believe in progress, and I work so hard for it. And I do believe that the future of the African continent is actually very bright. Why do I think so? I think there is a very conscious awakening among the African public, especially the young people. I think the things we believe in as a young generation and our passion for the things we believe in is incomparable compared to, for instance, our parents. Perhaps it could only be compared to our grandparents, like the people who brought independence.
Yes.
The Obotes, the Kenyattas, and so I think that this kind of reawakening, this kind of consciousness is going to rebuild the kind of future that we want. And I think this is being brought about because we are a lot more exposed. So if I went to Europe, if I went to the United States, I don't want to come back, and live as if I'm not exposed. And that's fundamentally the whole essence of the Okere City story. I mean, so in my village, it was a bush. Northern Uganda, it was war, we were in the camp, so not in the literal sense, like it was a bush, right? So when I came back home, I was like, if I'm really to live in this village, there must be basic minimums. There must be a flush toilet. There must be a fridge so I can get a cold bottle of beer if I needed it.
And it is action that is going to change Africa. Pam, speak to Africa. 50 years from today, paint me a picture.
The metaphor that I used earlier is when people say Africa, we kind of box each other into one. We box each other into a one size fits all. And like I said, every mountain, every person who say, if you take someone who climbed Kilimanjaro, they'll tell you it was very difficult. For me, I would say it wasn't difficult. It was just the one day that almost knocked me out, but it wasn't difficult. So what I see in Africa, African countries, that's the best way I would put it, African countries, is we've seen a change. I was lucky to spend the end of 2019 in Ghana, to see the year of the return, to see Africans in the diaspora try to find their lineage. Because when you talk about Africa, we're not only talking about those who are here, we're talking about everyone who has a lineage to Africa. And if you see the Olympics, I kept telling my friends, black people are winning. You know, and they kept saying, you mean Uganda? So they sent me, those who didn't see it, sent me a note saying, but we only have Uganda. And I told them, how many black people have you seen take a medal in the Olympics?
Everywhere, everywhere you turn.
We clearly
and
went
it's
home.
strange. I was asking myself, when are the Olympics ever going to come to Africa? If they're being won by Africans, we need to talk about that. So maybe the next 50 years will have possible.
What I see in the next 50 years, I believe in tides. The tide is changing. You can see in the people's mindset. You can see how scared those who feel that they have a grip on us are. You can see in the political landscape that something is changing, and we have to be ready to accept that change. We have to be ready to run with that change. When I see some of my friends investing in agriculture. You find someone from Uganda going to buy chunks of land in northern Uganda to not only help the community thrive, but also earn a living for him and his family. The mindset is different. The mindset, like you said, is changing. My parents don't have a business, but we have businesses on the side. We are all farmers. We're doing something online. But what I see is a lot of, let me say, what I hope in the next 50 years is one, governance is very good. May we have countries in Africa that have good governance, that people are put in place, because everything starts from the top. You can't say Africa is going to change and we have the kind of leadership we have running from the northern part to down to South Africa. The kind of leadership that we have has to change. And it's our generation that has to make that change. He talked about infrastructure, very key, links to governance. We have corruption is a key thing in every African country, where you find someone, I don't know how they do it, but pocketing healthcare. I always tell my friends in politics, we only need 3 or 4 things: infrastructure, healthcare, and education. And also commerce. Once you can provide a platform for that, you can run around and we are all wealthy. Why only a small class? Only until I hope that we will have equitable distribution of wealth in the next 50 to 100 years.
Awesome.
Just to say that Africa is the future.
Like you said, are living in an interesting time. I like to say that our generation is what I'd call the seed generation. Yeah? It is the seed and the bridge kind of generation. We are the generation that has been in the village and understands the traditional Africa, and also has been on the plane visiting other cities and understands the globalization and the modern world out there. But you know what's interesting is that now with the rising African consciousness that you mentioned and the changing tide, we are the generation that has to decide which type of Africa is going to continue. You understand? For example, what makes us as Africans intrinsically valuable? We have to determine that for ourselves. Because there's been a long time bashing of the African culture, of the putting down of the African man. That time has ended. But then who is the African man? What does the African daughter stand for? Are you going to be okay with your daughter kneeling or not? This is what I'm saying. We are that seed generation. And then we're also a bridge generation. The one that is going to move Africa from this backward story to the positive story, but it has to be guided. And you use the word action, use the word people, and that is why we are doing this. So that we can find more people out of Africa as passionate as we are about Africa to tell the African story around the African fireplace. Yeah? And hear these insights. Because I believe that if I may, my challenge with Africa and the leadership that we've had is that we have spent so much time eating our seed. You're a farmer, you understand what that means. I grow sorghum in a bin, and the biggest problem I found there is that after harvest, they eat and sell everything, and then there is no more seed. So I said, one thing I need to sort out in a bin is a store, so that people can actually be able to keep their seed, and then I bring a bank to work with them to produce in the next season. So I'm saying seed. And you know what seed represents here for me? Seed is a metaphor for ideas. Seed is a metaphor for investment. Seed is a metaphor for infrastructure. Like you said, if someone eats a school, someone eats a hospital, someone eats a road, they've eaten seed. So I've been saying this for a long time, that if Africa is going to change, we have to manage our appetites and our hunger, and come to a place where if we are being too hungry to imagine, we need to begin fasting so that we can elevate our minds to see a bigger picture. Yeah? And I want to end this particular solution meetup with you, my guests. I'm very glad that you've come. This is a better side.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you all. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Idea Cafe Africa on YouTube, on Facebook. And we will be hosting more iconic people like these. My friend Ojok Okello, thank you for coming. It's a blessing. I mean, Okere is, what, like 400 kilometers plus away from here? And I'm coming to Otuke. Let me tell you, I'm coming to Otuke. I think the last time we talked about it, this is my product, honey. And my story around honey is that the bee is on the money. And I'm following the bee. You know why? Because without trees, we have no bees. Without bees, we have no food. And guess what? If you look at Ugandan money, on every Ugandan currency, the bee is seated there at the top. So the bee is on the money. So I want you to come to Okere City. I want you to organize for me a group of young people that I can teach the skill of beekeeping, and then empower them with hives so that they can have something to work with. And I think we've talked about these, the shea nut trees. This is something I'm excited about. And if you'd like to be a part of this, all you have to do is sponsor a planting of a tree. And we'll tell you about that, how much it costs to plant a tree or two, so that we can have more people, more young people, figure out how to take care of the environment by planting trees, and have the environment take care of them by providing them with honey that they can turn into cash. And Pam, I'm excited about what's next for you, because clearly you're not done.
Absolutely not.
You're not done. So on to the next mountain, and this has been a Chartered solution here at Idea Cafe, and it's always a blessing, and everything we do it compelled by love for God and country.